Well, it's time for still another test review podcast. And yes, once again, I am planning to include all the matching questions. These are really tough. I had to take these matching quizzes several times myself before I could count on getting a perfect score. In a perfect world, you would not have to memorize all these difficult names and places. It is not a perfect world. What are Hublot masks? How are they used? What are their formal qualities? In other words, how do they look? And how do these qualities support their function? Note, you will not have this image on your test, just the phrase Hublot mask. Here are a couple of general questions. They're pretty straightforward. This is a popular work. Who carved it? And hint, it was a cooperative effort in terms of producing this work, or producing, I should say, and using it. Why are nails and other materials added to the sculpture? There are two very similar questions about this, by the way. What is the most common context for using this kind of figure? In other words, when does the need for this figure arise? And here's a hint for another question about this work. The figures dealt with issues of power, danger, and disease, but not, as far as I could tell, love and marriage. What are these called? Where are they facing? What do these images represent? And which of the following is true? I don't think this is a tough one if you look at the picture. The sculptures were clothed during ceremonies, attacked as enemy spirits, painted in bright colors, organized in groupings. So why was basalt used to construct Nam Madol, aside from the fact that basalt was found on volcanic islands? And I'll give you a hint. It has to do with how this kind of basalt, known as columnar basalt, forms geologically. I actually talked about this in my introductory Pacific art podcast. What is this prehistoric Pacific work? Which of the works from this unit also use animal motifs? What social and political purpose did this complex serve? Think back to my first podcast when I talked about how Pacific art reflected and reinforced social structure and status. What purpose did the walls serve? Remember that this complex was basically built on an artificial island atop a coral reef. What was the function of this work? What did the shell stand for? Was it painted? Was it actually used at sea? There are a lot of questions on this work from various sources. So, what signal did the materials and the manufacturing processes of this Hawaiian ahu'ula send to anyone who saw one? Who got to wear them? How would people who saw someone wearing such a cloak respond? What was the desired response on the part of people viewing this? What do the patterns on the cape represent? Hint, since I find the College Board question a little confusing, I'll just add that the artist does not own these works and the wearer does not get to select the pattern. What purpose did these cloaks serve in this society? And I'll give you a hint, it was about power and social standing, not about wealth. By appearing in the guise of the gods, Hawaiian chiefs would have sought to intimidate their enemies. What benefit did wearing the cape give the wearer? Hint, especially in battle. What's the function of this work? There are two questions that ask pretty much the same thing from two different College Board publications. I think maybe the wizards think this is important, or maybe it's easy to turn into a question. By the way, one of the questions does not come with an image or with the English title, so you need to know the African title for this. What is the function of this work? Do you notice a pattern here? The College Board questions from this unit are very focused on function, content, and context. In this case, think past the title of the object to the function it serves for the entire culture, for the entire people. What is the function of this fang bieri, B-Y-E-R-I? It's a word you need to know. What elements of fang life account for the production of works such as this? What were the functions of the Great Zimbabwe Complex? This is an accept question, so I'm going to give you a hint. Is there any evidence that the walls or buildings were used for military purposes? What kind of masonry is used in the halls? Again, it's a term for masonry that does not use mortar. We'll see this in the Art of the Americas as well. I used the term in my introductory podcast. It starts with an A. You should have it in your notes. What would most strike a visitor? I don't really like the way this question was worded, but the answer reflects what makes this complex so unusual in African construction. And that's a pretty broad hint. Okay, which earlier work that you've studied has a similar content? Specifically, which earlier work shows women in procession bringing a gift of cloth? That's actually, I think, a fun comparison, and I'll bet that's one reason why the College Board chose to include this image. What is tapa, and how is it made? What is this prehistoric Pacific work? Which of the works from this unit also use animal motifs? What is the context of this statue? What is it portraying? What peoples or culture produced this statue? Now, there's an except question that requires you to remember some details about the statue. So how is the king portrayed? What symbols of his rule are included in the statue? And what is happening in the photo on the right, the contextual photo? Basically, what is the point of getting decked up in all of this regalia? How does this Chokwe mask demonstrate the matriarchal nature of this culture? The answer is a little strange. Who wears the mask? That's a big hint. Good luck.